Matt Hart.
Matt's here.
Gerald Lisco.
Gerald's here.
Dan, we can't hear you now. I think I keep seeing I see your lips moving, so I know so Dan's here. That's the best way.
And how about Nick? I heard Nick earlier.
Oh, yes. I don't hear anything.
I think Nick's muted.
It
Yes,
shows
Nick.
mute.
Nick, you're muted. Now you're unmuted. I don't hear.
I don't hear anything.
Yeah, I think we're having trouble with audio. It's cutting in and out, but it appears that Matt Hart and Nick are both here. Therefore, Chairman, we would have a quorum.
So we have a quorum. So the only one absent as of now is Allison. Is that correct?
That's correct.
We have 5. So this being the time, 4:15, let's call the April Planning and Zoning Board meeting to start. Shelley, would give us a few ground rules? We kind of talked a little bit this morning about, putting it on mute and et cetera on what we should do using this new tool.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. So since we're conducting a virtual meeting and it is live on YouTube on the city's station, we need to make sure that we keep feedback to a minimum. So if you would mute yourself until you want to comment, ask a question, and time for vote, that would be great. Please, when you're asking questions, there are some people that are in by telephone, to please state your name before you ask the question, or if you're making a motion. That way anyone that may just be listening will be able to know who is making the motion or asking the question. So I think that's all the ground rules I have at this point. I would like, Mr. Chairman, before we get going, to introduce our newest planners. It is Tiffany Farrow, and we were able to talk her into leaving the wonderful town of Dallas and coming to work for us. She's been with us for a couple of weeks. She has an education in architecture and a lot of experience in community development, and her role with the planning department is actually a lot, but she will be focusing on transportation for the city to keep us up to date and advocate on the city's behalf on transportation funding and projects. So welcome, Tiffany.
Thanks, nice to meet all of you.
And Tiffany, she participated this morning. I wasn't sure who that was. I didn't know if we had a new board member or not, but welcome aboard. This is new for all of us. So we'll kind of work through this together. This is my first meeting as chair. I'd like to thank this board for putting the confidence in me and teach me not to miss a meeting. That's what happens, right? When you don't. But I do want to thank. I'd be remiss in not thanking Andy Miller and Jim Heffron, who served on this committee for this board for a long time, and both of them were very, very valuable members, and we're certainly going to miss their input and their wisdom as we go forward. But with Andy leaving, that does leave a void in the vice chair role as it currently stands, and I had talked about and talked a little bit with Shelley just before everybody joined, actually. And my thinking is now, and I don't know who may have an interest in serving, but I do know that Allison has been on this board for quite some time, and she was actually a member of this board when I joined this last time, and I think she would be an excellent candidate. And I hate to do that to somebody if they're not at the meeting, but Shelley, that's a recommendation I would like to put forward. It's Allison Cottingham to be our vice chair.
Okay, all right, so there's a motion on the floor.
If anyone's willing to second that, or we can table that, or what have you. So,
Dan, give me the peace sign or the second the motion.
so do we do have a second with Dan?
Yes.
Is there any other discussion about the vice chair role? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, like sign. So let the minutes reflect that it approved unanimously. The first order of business is to set the agenda. Do I have a motion to do so?
Remember, if you're going to make the motion, to please unmute yourself.
Motion to set the agenda.
Okay, Nick has set the motion. Is there a second?
Dan gave us the peace sign, so Dan second.
Dan has seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. No, the agenda is set. The first thing on the agenda is adoption of the minutes from our November 2019 meeting, and I hope everyone's had the opportunity to review those meetings and those minutes. Does anyone have any addition or corrections to the minutes as presented here? If not, I would look for a motion to approve. Dan has put the thumbs up to the motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Nick has second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the minutes stand approved as presented. The first item on the agenda after the minutes is the public items. This is item number 1, which is ZA 2020.02, amendment of various chapters of the LDC. A request to amend various chapters to change the name of the Conditional Use Permit, CUP, to Special Use Permit, SUP, consistent with state law. The amendment also includes the ability to request for temporary institutional housing through the Special Use Permit process. And Shelley, I believe you are presenting on behalf of the city.
Yes, this is Shelley DeHart, Planning Director, presenting this case. So this case comes before the board where the impetus for the case was actually a request by representatives of Belmont Abbey. They had requested the ability to erect temporary housing on their campus in the event that their new dorms that are currently under construction are not completed. So they were just looking ahead, and looking through our ordinance, we found that our ordinance is silent in that area as far as a temporary use. So we took the issue to a city council workshop where we asked them if that's something they wanted to consider amending the ordinance, and they said yes, they were open to that. However, they wanted it to be a discretionary type permit by a CUP. So with that, staff was directed to go back and work on the ordinance. And as many of you know, state statutes have changed where the state law is now requiring all cities that use the term conditional use permit to change that to special use permit. There was always some confusion between a conditional zoning district and a conditional use permit. So the state stepped in and said, well, let's just clarify the two. So with that need to update our ordinance, we decided to go ahead and update the ordinance in that area. So this amendment consists of trying to write in the ability to request temporary housing for institutional uses, changing the language from conditional use permit throughout the ordinance to special use permit. And while we were in the various chapters, we wanted to change the state statute references that were 160A, which have now been replaced by 160D. So to correct that throughout the ordinance. And then we looked at various definitions to correct why we were, again, in the various sections. So I'm going to quickly go through some of the chapters and the pages, and you'll see in your report that the changes have been proposed in red, and there are various strikeouts. So in Chapter 2, we amended various pages, 2:9, 2:10, 2:12, 2:23, and 2:29. And what we did is we entered in definitions of developer, dwelling, special use permit, and again, change references from 160A to 160D. Chapter 3, there were just 2 pages that needed amending, 3.3 and 3.5, and that was specific to allowing institutional uses the ability to request temporary housing by special use permit. So within there, we also changed any language from CUP to SUP. Chapter 4, it was just one change on page 4-8. We changed the conditional use permit to special use permit. Chapter 5, now this is where we had to change the conditional use permit to special use permit throughout the document. So that chapter was probably the one that had the most editing, but it was a simple change from conditional use permit to special use permit. Chapter 6, we changed page 6.1, 6.4, 6.6, and 6.8. Again, we changed conditional uses to special use. We also removed the requirement that bed and breakfast facilities had to be owner occupied. We believe that was a conflict with state law. And we changed the references from 160A to 160D. Chapter 9 was one page. That's our parking chapter that requires a certain process to go be processed by, used to be CUP, but SUP now. Chapter 15, we amended pages 15.9 through 15.11. 1513. Again, there were changes from CUP to SUP. The applicant provided, we also added that the applicants have to provide written consent for conditions. That was new in state law, so we have implemented that. We changed references from 168 and 160D. And then we corrected something we've known was incorrect in our ordinance for quite a while. It had to do with improvement guarantees. Ordinance used to say 1.5 times the amount for surety, and it's actually capped by the state at 1.25. Now, we've been following the state law for quite a while, but this gave us an opportunity to correct it in our land development code. And then chapter 16, 16-3 and 16-6, again, we modified and used the term special use and changed the reference from 160A to 160B. So I'm going to try to bring up my PowerPoint real quick. I apologize, it went away. See if I can share that on the screen. Yeah, let's give it a go. There you go. All right, just so we can see some of the board requirements for this. So here's the table, and I'll try to bring it up. Here we go. Here's the table of all the changes that I just referenced. I did get some comments from one of our board members, and I did make modifications. He noticed that we use the acronym CUP for Conditional Use Permit, and there is an acronym for Special Use Permit, which is SUP, but we did not put the acronym in as we had for a CUP. So I added it to the definition on page 2-29 for a special use permit. Right after the title there, I put in parentheses SUP. I also added it to page 15-9, which is section 1510, which outlines the procedure for a special use permit. I put the acronym there, so if we refer to an SUP, we can find it. He also noticed that we had an error in a word, that one of our words specifically, instead of an L, had a 1, so we changed that. That's been corrected, and I noticed on page 15-9, when we had special use permit on the second to the last paragraph in the last sentence, it was a uppercase P and it should have been a lowercase, so that was adjusted. So those 3 modifications were taken care of. So part of any text amendment to the Land Development Code requires our board make findings that it's consistent with goals in our comprehensive land use plan. We find that it is consistent with goal 8, which is intergovernmental relations, because it is bringing our ordinance into compliance with newly adopted state law. So with that, I ask that you receive the report, consider the consistency with the goals of the comprehensive land use plan, and after deliberations, recommend to approve with modifications, or disapprove this amendment. And that completes my presentation.
Thank you, Shelley.
Yes.
Does anyone have any questions of Shelley at this time? I do have one. I wonder if I know we've used CUP for a long time. You know, would anyone have any old documents that may be going back to the Land Development Code? And would you put the special use permit and put a note in there that it was changed from CUP to special use permit? Would that help or not help, or just confuse matters?
Actually, that's a great point. The actual definition provided in the newly adopted state law defines a special use permit as a permit issued to authorize development or land uses in a particular zoning district upon presentation of competent materials, substantial evidence establishing compliance with one or more general standards, requiring the judgment and discretion be exercised, as well as compliance with specific standards. This definition includes permits previously referred to as conditional use permits. So the state thought about that, and they just rolled all our previously approved CUPs to fall up under the definition of an SUP.
But we don't have any language or anything that basically mentions this used to be that, right? Or we don't need that. And if you say we don't need it, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I don't think we need it, and I just want to make sure I'm understanding your question.
I have someone that just has a copy of something that's out there that has the old, and it calls it conditional use permit, and they're flipping through the new book. They don't see anything about that. I don't know if it would be helpful if it said this was basically changed from CUP, because there's not any difference really, right, in our code other than just the name change.
That's correct. It's a name change. It's the same quasi-judicial process. We have to change all our applications. We'll have to amend our fee schedule, et cetera. And we can put information on our website that can refer to this amendment as changing. If someone's doing a search for CUP, it will take them to a page about it's been amended to special use permit.
That'd probably be better, and just leave the document clean.
Okay.
Any other questions, concerns, issues from the members? Hearing none, I'm open to a motion to approve this as presented. Is someone like to make such a motion?
Motion to approve as presented.
With the finding as well, you can do it in one motion. Make the finding as consistent with the comprehensive land use plan and recommend council approval. You can do that in one motion now. Mm-hmm.
So Nick has made the motion along with the comprehensive use plan, right?
Yes, the consistency finding.
The document that goes along with it. Is there a second?
This is Matt Hart. I second the motion.
All right. Nick has made the motion and Matt has seconded the motion. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of approving the motion, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Hearing none.
Did I hear Allison?
Finally.
Yes, Allison, great. So if our record can reflect, Allison heard the case and voted. Thank you.
So the commission approved
that she's co-chair too.
Oh yes, Allison, you are now the vice chair for the board.
Damn, I knew that was.
Congratulations. I told him you don't miss meetings.
Congratulations. Yes.
Allison,
Great.
you'll do an excellent job. You were here when I got here, and so I know you will do well.
Thank you. Sure. I'll do whatever I need to do. But for some reason, I couldn't connect by computer. Sorry.
Well, you weren't the only one. We had several issues of, people being able to get through, and so it took us a while to get to that point.
Good.
Shelley,
Sorry.
that's all right. Thank you for joining. The second item
Sure.
has to do with the development update. Shelley, I believe, are you handling that, or?
Yes, I'm going to tag team it with Tiffany Farrow. So we will send out our weekly report so you can see all of the projects that are still ongoing and the new projects coming in. But I just wanted to give you a couple of statistics and let you know about a couple of projects. So in 2019 calendar year was our highest permit issuing year so far. We actually issued 347 new residential units, with the largest amount was actually in Conservancy in McLean. They represented about 66 of those units, followed by Aberfall. Those townhomes went pretty quick. Then we actually, Laurel Walk is moving very well. South Shore, we actually saw an increase in the custom homes in the South Shore section of McLean. Morgan's Branch and Overlake are pretty neck and neck. They're about 38 residential units. Reflection Point is it's still one of our slower moving, but they did have 5 permits last year. And I will get out a table with the subdivision stats for new housing starts and build out, because some developments are now built out. Aberfall's completely built out. Eagle Park, Lake Point. So we are slowly wrapping up, or I should say quickly wrapping up our available lots out there. Non-residential developments that are still moving along. We have Belmont Dental is a 5,000 square foot new dental office under construction on Spruce Street, which is right off the park. The River West Business Park, they are moving pretty quickly. They haven't broken ground, but they have their construction plans getting ready to come in, and they're getting Ncdot on board. So it seems to be moving forward. We do have the construction plans in for review for the Morris. So we're just wrapping up our first review of that project. North Main Station, which is on Glenway in downtown Belmont. It now has roofing going on, so they've gone vertical. That's a 6,000 square foot commercial strip that we're very excited about. Home 2 Suites up on Holly Avenue next to Chick-fil-A. If you haven't seen it lately, it has really taken shape. So it's moving along. We had one dental office wrap up that was in Belmont Town Center. That was about 4,000 square feet. It's already up and running for business. So projects in the pipeline. We, of course, are working with Claremont Hospital. That project is still in sketch plan phase, and we are doing the traffic study. We do have a sketch plan over on part of the what people term the old Pittenger property. It is just very, very, it's still in a very early sketch, so we're not sure where that one's going to go. We're still working with them on discussions. So that's just a little bit of the development going on that we're working on. We haven't, although we have a stay-at-home state of emergency going on, our permits are still coming in and we still are doing a lot of finals. So development and new permit starts have not slowed down for us. So that's positive. So we hope it keeps moving in that direction. I will now turn it over to Tiffany so she can provide you an update on transportation.
Sorry, guys, I had to take myself off mute. Hi, I'm Tiffany. I am the new associate planner here at Belmont. And so for transportation updates, I believe you guys last met in November, so I apologize if any of this is a repeat. But we have, in March, we met with CATS and Belmont Abbey to discuss the Silver Line and possible locations for the light rail station here in Belmont. And so now CATS is working on the initial concept plans, and we're anticipating hearing an update from them in May or June. I believe public comment and public input is scheduled for fall and winter of this year. So they're moving pretty fast on just getting some conceptual things and studies started, and that's exciting to see. And we are in their first focus area. So they are starting our way and then moving towards Center City with their plans for that project. And they're working towards a goal of a full build out by 2030. So we are in that 10-year time frame. So then our city council approved an updated memorandum of understanding at this past meeting on the 6th for the Catawba Crossings feasibility study. And so that project is now ready to move forward. I think there's a couple more partner agencies that are working on adopting that MOU as well, but that project is going to start getting rolling here as well. The Aesthetics Committee met in March to discuss the bridge replacement along US 74 as well, and we are anticipating an updated rendering to be able to share with everyone shortly on that. That one would include some brick accents as well as some acorn-style lighting on that to make that bridge look a little bit more pleasing aesthetically as you enter into Gaston County. The Belmont Rail Trail phasing has also been approved, and so that one is still moving forward in the plans and a collaborative effort with Belmont Trolley and a multi-use path there. Staff is currently also working with the developer of the Morris on a trail design to be included with their project. That would be part of the Carolina Thread Trail, and they're anticipating construction to begin on their segment of that trail in about 2 years, maybe a little bit longer. It'll be partnered with their last phase of the build out for that project. And then the Carolina Thread Trail also approved an amendment recently to the master plan that shifts the connection between the Belmont and Cramerton from Eagle Road sidewalk to the new main trail proposed through the Rocky Branch Park and Stuart Cramer High School based on the council's approval of the Rocky Branch Park plans. So that got approved by the Thread Trail, and so we will update our maps accordingly. Belmont's projects that we've requested for inclusion in the Spot 6.0 through the Gaston Cleveland Lincoln MPO were also approved by their technical coordination committee, and so they will be submitted to Ncdot in July for scoring. Those projects included improvements along Woodlawn and also part of the multi-use path for the rail trail project. And then lastly, we are planning on applying for the Ncdot pedestrian plan grant to help fund an update of our existing pedestrian plan, which was adopted in 2009. So our grant applications are due in June, and we are hoping to know of the results of who was awarded by the end of this year, so by the end of 2020.
Thank you, Tiffany.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. Welcome to the city. Does
Thank you.
anyone have any questions of Tiffany or Shelley, or do we have any other items to discuss today that anyone's aware of?
I had a quick question. You guys
Hey,
come up.
Shelley, this is Alice.
Yes.
What the Pittenger property, is it the full, is it a something to do the full thing or some portion of it?
No, it's a portion. It's the northern portion. That property is 3 separate parcels. It's the most northern parcel. And again, they're in a real preliminary sketch phase. And they have a lot of work to do. That project, anyone that develops on that project has to do a lot of homework because it includes the Belmont Mount Holly connector, which is that north-south spine that parallels South Point Road. There's a lot of topography and there's a lot of things that they're just going to have to, engineering that they're going to have to do to ensure that they are designing the Belmont Mountain Holly connector consistent with the vision of our MPO in the city, and they'll have to build it as well and use it as access to their development. So there's a lot of any development that happens on there's a lot of homework that they have to do.
So even developing that front one portion, they still have to do that full road.
Right. Well, they wouldn't have to build the full road all the way to the south to the north. They have to build what goes through their property. So it's their portion, but it has to be designed in a manner that's consistent with our adopted plans to ensure that it's not just piecemeal. So they have to think about the entire alignment and make sure that it will be functional from the north all the way to the south, but they'll only be building the portion in their section.
Okay. Thank you. That was mine.
And for the newer members that don't know exactly where that property is, it's bounded by, I guess that's Upper Armstrong Road and the South Fork River and kind of behind the high school. That's what, 1,700 acres, 1,300, somewhere like that? Or
it's about 1,200 acres, between 11 and 1,200 acres. And you're exactly right. The northern borders, Upper Armstrong on the west, it's bounded by the South Fork. And to the south, it ends around Tucker Road. Would be, I'd say, the southern portion, but in its entirety, it's between 11 and 1,200 acres.
Thank you. I thought I heard another question. Anyone else have another question?
Yeah, I had a quick question. Does the city have a process right now to deal with the public comment portion of rezonings?
Oh, yes. So I apologize. I should have said this at the beginning. So on the agenda, there was some direction that if anyone wanted to comment on this particular text amendment, then they could email the questions to me by 3:30 today, and we would read them out loud to ensure we answered them. Now, since this is a public meeting and not actually a public hearing, that will follow whatever council process they have set forth for public hearings when it moves forward to city council. Okay.
Any other questions? I do have one about the 2 vacant seats.
Yes.
Do you know where that stands, or
Where it stands is we have plenty of applications in for the 2 seats. Some were left over from the last interview session. And then we had some new ones. They were unable to complete interviews of all candidates, and they typically interview them all before they appoint them. Well, it was after the first round, there was a stay in place order and so forth. So we do not know at this point in time when we might be able to complete the interviews, or the council would complete the interviews for appointments.
it'll be when it'll be, right?
Mm-hmm. And I did want to say, I did get a email from Dan. Dan, somehow he dropped off and he's unable to reconnect, but I just wanted to let the group know.
All right. I have nothing else. If Shelley, you have nothing else, Tiffany has nothing.
No, I appreciate. Yeah, I want to say I appreciate everybody's time in making this work so we can keep moving some things like our text amendments forward during this time.
I kind of like this format and starting at 4 and finishing before 5, right? Instead of.
Yes. Oh, we would be very comfortable if you were to change the meeting time to 4 o'clock. That would be great. But we know that in normal times, people are working out of the office.
You need to make it easier for people that from the public building.
That's exactly right. That public participation.
All right. So if there's nothing else, I'm open to a motion to adjourn the meeting.
This
It's
is
Allison.
Matt.
I'll make
Motion to adjourn.
Matt has made the motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Jerry, I'll second it.
Jerry has second. Any discussion? If not, we stand adjourned till May 21st.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Stay safe.
Thanks for. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.